Assassin's Creed is full of some of the most interesting villains out there. The Templars genuinely believe that their way is the correct way and that they are the answer to the problems humanity faces. Because of that, they seek control of nations, armies, and unlimited power. Haytham Kenway is one of these Templars. The son of Edward Kenway, Haytham eventually becomes the Templar Grand Master in the colonial Americas, and we see him featured in Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Rogue. However, despite this interesting and well-written character with an enigmatic and interesting backstory, we never actually got a game for him at all. I've said this in a separate video before, but I really do think that the Kenway family deserved more development in Assassin's Creed. Their role in the Assassins and Templars is clearly important and has value to it, but they were relegated to single games and weren't really given enough time to flesh out as characters. Additionally, Connor and Haytham didn't get individual stories, they were placed within the same game, which in my opinion was the wrong decision. Besides, Haytham's personality is well written and his character went through a lot, but there's obviously a lot more to this argument, so let's break it down. Haytham Kenway was born in London and is the son of master assassin Edward Kenway. From a very young age, Haytham was being trained to become an assassin, learning how to use a sword at the age of 6. However, everything changes when Edward is unfortunately killed. 5 mercenaries break into the Kenway household. Although Edward manages to kill one, he is downed by another. Haytham takes his first life by stabbing the man that attacked his mother. Reginald Birch, a senior property manager for Edward, manages to kill the mercenary that killed Edward. However, Haytham's half-sister Jennifer is kidnapped and the house is burnt down. Reginald Birch eventually approaches Haytham and tells him they can go to Europe together to search for Jennifer. At first, Haytham wanted to go, but he was reluctant as he wanted to stay with his mother, who had been sick. Still, Birch continued to egg Haytham on and would eventually convince him to go to Europe. As it turns out, obviously, Reginald Birch was a Templar the entire time, and he introduces Haytham to another Templar named Edward Braddock, who was to help them conduct the search for Jennifer. However, the search is delayed due to the War of the Austrian Succession. Birch still continued to instruct Haytham in the ways of being a Templar, pushing Haytham further and further away from any potential of ever being an assassin. Eventually, Haytham began to embrace the Templar philosophy and found that it fit his own mindset. He would be inducted into the Order in 1744 and performed his first assassination on a greedy merchant in Liverpool. Haytham would earn a strong reputation for being an efficient assassin due to his first few kills. However, Haytham wouldn't know that Edward was an assassin the entire time until he interrogated a soldier who had apparently been the one responsible for blackmailing a man named Jack Digweed. Digweed had been Edward's personal valet and had been absent the night of Edward's murder. It was in this interrogation that Haytham learned that Edward had been in possession of an important object and that was why he had been killed. Unfortunately though, Haytham was not able to find out what the object was. Haytham also continued to work with Braddock, but saw Braddock commit acts of cruelty against innocent people. Haytham felt that Braddock was abandoning the tenets and principles of the Templar Order. Skipping ahead a little, we get to the events of Assassin's Creed 3. Now, Assassin's Creed 3 set itself up in an interesting way, where Haytham was introduced as being the protagonist of the story, before we find out that he was actually a Templar all along, and that the true protagonist was Connor. For a twist that was actually really interesting, and I liked it. However, what I didn't like was the fact that Haytham never actually got the proper amount of time to develop his story. You see, the backstory about Haytham is so interesting, and it could be an entire game by itself. Ubisoft had a lot of potential with the story that they had curated about the son of Master Assassin Edward Kenway, but it was pretty much wasted. Nothing against Assassin's Creed Rogue, but we got the backstory for the man that killed Arno's father before we really got the backstory for Haytham Kenway in its own video game. In my opinion, this doesn't really make too much sense, because we have a prime candidate for a game about an assassin turned Templar in Haytham. Technically, he didn't know he was an assassin, but to have a game about the Grand Master of the Templars Order colonial right and his rise to power would have been so interesting. I loved the sequences with Haytham in Assassin's Creed 3. His character, dialogue, personality, and behavior were all so well written. He felt like a genuine human being, and he felt very real. His motivations and his philosophies were also well expressed. Haytham clearly displays strong intelligence. He was able to effectively almost destroy the assassins in colonial America, with his ability to establish a strong presence for the Templars there. That requires true dedication, leadership, and willingness, which are all traits very obvious to Haytham. Haytham is also the type of person to stick to his principles and beliefs until the bitter end. Even when he was facing off against Connor, he didn't budge from his ideals, not even to make an exception for his own son. That is pretty heavy stuff. I mean, Haytham's last words were telling Connor that he should have killed him sooner. That's rough, but it fits his character. I like that Rogue gave more time for Haytham's story in the colonial Americas to be expanded, and that it showcased how the Templars continued to grow. However, Haytham was placed into 2 games that were not about him, despite him being one of the best written characters in Assassin's Creed. We need a chance to see Haytham's ascent into the Templar Order properly, and I really think that the backstory he has could be amazing in an Assassin's Creed game. We already know Connor's and Edward's stories, and how they both became powerful assassins, and we got games about them, but not about Haytham. I think that after the Ezio trilogy, Ubisoft had the right thing going with the Kenway family, but they just simply moved away from it and kept writing single-story protagonists and moved on with each title. I don't really see why they would do that when a prime candidate for a great Assassin's Creed game is right there in front of their eyes. I also think that we need more Assassin's Creed games where we can explore the perspective of the Templars. For a series that likes to display the concept of ambiguity in regards to good versus evil, there isn't much of the Templar perspective. We are overwhelmingly given the assassin side of the conflict, but the Templars also have ideas and potentially valid points that I think we as players should be given a chance to explore and understand too. When we break it down, the Assassins and the Templars are not really fully good or fully bad. Both sides utilize sometimes unethical methods to accomplish their goals, even if their goals are different. Both ultimately believe they're doing the right thing. The Templars want order and obedience in order to fix the problems of the world. The Assassins believe people should be free to choose, but don't both have interesting ideas to give? In Assassin's Creed 3, we know that Haytham and Braddock had a history, but guess what? We don't really get much story about that history in Assassin's Creed 3. We have to assassinate Braddock, but why? What is the stake for the player to care about the story without the proper context? Releasing a game about Haytham could really fill in a lot of blanks. We know that Haytham and Connor's mother had a relationship, but we didn't really learn why it ended or why they split. Connor's mother just kinda died early on. We didn't get much of an explanation as to why Haytham and her didn't last. There are a lot of blanks and skips in the story that are pretty essential to developing Haytham's personality that were just glossed over. Besides, we still have Jennifer, who'd been kidnapped. What about her story? That could have been a really big plot point for a game about Haytham all along. Haytham goes to the Ottoman Empire to find Jennifer, which would have also made for a great way to segue back to one of the most interesting and well-made settings in the Assassin's Creed franchise. Jennifer eventually reveals to Haytham that it was Birch that had ordered the attack on their home, because she had figured out that Birch was a Templar and had told Edward about Birch. But guess what? Such an important plot point that would have given more time for the Kenway family story to expand was never in the games. Plus, Assassin's Creed 3 did this thing where they continued to skip time by just having the character narrate their thoughts in a journal-like style, which is not satisfactory when you have such a great character with a potentially very interesting storyline. I think that Haytham was wasted as a character. He was very fun to play as, he was intriguing, and he was genuinely a unique addition to the franchise's roster of characters. I don't like that a lot of very interesting story elements for Assassin's Creed are being relegated to comic books and novels. Let's face it, the vast majority of people who play video games are not interested in reading entire books about the game. Most people are casual. And as much as I love video games myself, I just simply don't have a lot of time to read books when I write books. If I find time to read, it's pretty rare. If you can't fit your story into a single video game, you need a follow-up, or you need to adjust your story and make it less complicated and interesting, and these are pretty much your 2 options. Haytham Kenway's story is expansive, interesting, and intriguing, and the fact that we never got to see most of it in-game is disappointing. With that being said, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed that video, feel free to leave a like and comment below your thoughts on Haytham and if you believe he deserved his own game. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications set to all so you never miss out on another upload. Check out my military sci-fi series and my newspaper, the links are in the description below. Thanks again, and Symbiosis out.